What would you do if a blade flashed in the dark, and the only thing standing between you and danger was your own courage? For Ethan, a 13-year-old cadet with dreams bigger than his small frame, that moment came on a cold November evening in the heart of the city. The streets were alive with the hum of neon signs and distant traffic, but in the narrow alley behind the corner store, the world felt eerily still. Ethan's breath fogged in the crisp air as he adjusted the straps of his backpack, his cadet uniform neatly pressed beneath his jacket. He was just a kid, or so it seemed until the night took a turn that would change everything. Ethan had always been different. At an age when most boys were glued to video games or chasing fleeting trends, he spent his weekends at the local cadet corps, learning discipline, survival skills, and self-defense. His father, a retired soldier, had instilled in him a quiet strength, a belief that courage wasn't about size or strength, but about standing tall when fear screamed to run. Ethan wasn't tall, nor was he particularly strong, but his mind was sharp, his reflexes honed. Every drill, every lesson, every moment of sweat and struggle had been preparation for something he couldn't yet name. The alley was a shortcut Ethan took often, a narrow path flanked by brick walls graffitied with faded tags. He knew the risks his dad had warned him about the city's rough edges, but the cadet in him refused to cower. That night, as he rounded a corner, a figure stepped from the shadows. The man was lanky, his face half hidden by a hoodie, but the glint of a knife in his hand caught the streetlight's glow. "Empty your pockets, kid," the man snarled, his voice rough like gravel underfoot. Ethan froze, his heart pounding, but his training kicked in like a reflex. He assessed the situation. One assailant, no visible backup, the knife held low but unsteady. The punk didn't expect resistance. He thought Ethan was just a kid. Ethan's eyes locked onto the man's, steady and unyielding. "You don't want to do this," he said, his voice calm but firm. The punk laughed, a sharp, mocking sound, and took a step closer, the knife twitching in his grip. "You think you're tough, huh? Hand over the bag, or I'll cut you." Ethan's mind raced, but his body stayed still, his weight subtly shifting to his back foot, just as he'd practiced in self-defense drills. He wasn't afraid, not exactly. Fear was there, clawing at the edges of his mind, but it was drowned out by something stronger: focus. The punk lunged, the knife slashing toward Ethan's chest. In a blur, Ethan sidestepped, his small frame moving with precision. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisting it in a move he'd practiced 100 times, and the knife clattered to the ground. The punk stumbled, shocked, as Ethan swept his leg, sending him crashing to the pavement. It was over in seconds. The man scrambled to his feet, cursing, and bolted down the alley, leaving the knife behind. Ethan stood there, breathing hard, his heart thundering, but his mind clear. He'd done it. He'd faced danger and won. But the story didn't end there. As Ethan picked up the knife, wrapping it carefully in his scarf to turn it over to the police, he heard a faint sound of muffled sob from behind a dumpster. He tensed, ready for another threat, but what he found was no enemy. Huddled against the wall was a girl, no older than him, her face streaked with tears. Her clothes were tattered, and her eyes were wide with fear. "Please," she whispered, "don't hurt me." Ethan's heart sank. This was the twist he hadn't seen coming, the moment that shifted everything. The alley wasn't just a battlefield. It was a place where lives collided, where fear wore many faces. "I'm not going to hurt you," Ethan said softly, kneeling to her level. "I'm Ethan. I'm with the cadets. You're safe now." The girl, whose name he'd later learn was Mia, told him her story in halting words. She'd run away from home, from a stepfather who raised his fists more than his voice. The punk in the alley wasn't just a random thug who'd been harassing her for days, demanding what little money she had. Ethan's fight hadn't just saved himself, It had saved her, too. Together, they walked to the police station, Mia clutching Ethan's scarf like a lifeline. The officers were stunned when Ethan recounted the encounter, their eyes widening at the sight of the knife and the calm 13-year-old who disarmed a grown man. But Ethan didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a cadet, doing what he'd been trained to do. Mia, though, saw something more. To her, Ethan was a light in the dark, a reminder that courage could come in small packages. The weeks that followed were a blur. The story spread first through the precinct, then the local news. Kid Cadet disarms thug. The headlines read, but Ethan shrugged off the attention. He didn't want fame. He wanted to keep learning, keep growing. His dad, proud but unsurprised, ruffled his hair and said, "You did good, son, but don't let it go to your head." Ethan nodded, knowing the real victory wasn't the fight, but what came after. Mia became an unexpected part of his life. She started attending the Cadet Corps, her shy smile growing brighter with each meeting. She wasn't a runaway. Any Maresh been placed with a foster family who cared, thanks to Ethan's insistence that the police help her. The two of them trained together, side by side, their friendship a quiet bond forged in that alley. Mia wasn't just a victim. She was a survivor, and Ethan saw in her the same spark he felt in himself. The punk, it turned out, was caught a few days later, thanks to Ethan's detailed description. He was a small-time crook, desperate and reckless, but no match for a kid who'd been taught to stand his ground. Ethan sometimes wondered what the man thought when he realized he'd picked the wrong target. Did he feel the sting of defeat, or was he too lost in his own darkness to care? Ethan didn't dwell on it. He'd learned something that night. Courage wasn't just about fighting. It was about protecting, about seeing the humanity in others, even when the world felt cold. As winter turned to spring, Ethan stood taller, not in height, but in spirit. The Cadet Corps gave him a commendation, a small badge he pinned to his uniform with quiet pride. Mia was there, cheering louder than anyone, her laughter a sound Ethan hadn't heard in that alley, but cherished now. The city moved on, its rhythm unbroken, but for Ethan, the alley was a turning point. It was where he'd faced fear and found something greater himself. What makes a hero? Is it the strength to fight, the will to stand, or the heart to help? For Ethan, it was all three. He was 13, small for his age, but he carried a truth bigger than any blade. Courage isn't born in the moment of danger. It's built in the quiet hours, the endless drills, the choice to keep going. And in that alley, on a cold November night, a punk pulled a knife on a kid and learned that some kids are more than they seem.